Yeah, so last fight was the longest break between fights I've ever had, and this fight is going to be in my UFC stint. This will be the shortest tenure between fights. So before I got into the UFC, I used to fight much more actively, like 3 to 5 times a year. But circumstances made it so that it was hard for me to fight more than once a year, and then we had COVID and stuff. So that's really the big change. It's just jumping straight back into fight camp and staying more active.
Did that long layoff play a bigger factor in your last fight, than kind of maybe you let on, or maybe you didn't realize it until you were actually in the fight?
Yeah, 100%. When I got taken down in the first round, it just felt so foreign. Like, it was just that, yeah, ring rust. That was really it. It was ring rust. My mind was just blank for 2 minutes. And then coach was just like, can I swear? Yes. Yeah, he was like, get the fuck up. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I just got up and stood up straight away. And I was like, man, I could have done that 2 minutes ago. But, yeah, that's ring rust.
So obviously your opponent that you're fighting has not a lot of UFC experience, but I think he has, 15 of his 16 wins have come by submission. He's a pretty high-level grappler. So what do you make of the matchup you have ahead of you this weekend?
I mean, I've fought lots of guys like him, more so before I got into UFC. My old game plan used to be Sprawl and Brawl, made famous by Chuck Liddell, and yeah, it's just going back to my roots really in terms of how I'm going to approach this fight.
Are you the first city kickboxing fighter on the card? Are you the one that's, of all the city kickboxing guys, are you the first one?
No, my very good friend and new UFC alumni, Kevin Doucette, is, and then I'm immediately after him, and then Blood Diamond.
So obviously Israel said like he wants to finish this card in spectacular fashion because you guys will set the tone. So what has it been like in camp with everyone peaking at the same time?
It's been phenomenal. We've had some amazing camps in the past when we're all on the same card, and I've witnessed some great things in those camps. But this camp, like, there's been a few sessions where it felt like none of us, I don't know how to describe it, but I guess it's like you do the whole training session and you don't feel tired the whole time, and everyone's just pushing, and you look around and everyone's the same. It's like this weird energy that just lifts everybody up, and it's been like just a blessing to behold, really.
Last one for me. In your last few fights leading up to it, you've been pretty outspoken of like what young men are going through back in New Zealand and stuff. And Israel's documentary just came out, and he said that if not for anything, even if you're not an MMA fan, he thinks young men should just watch this documentary if they can pull anything of it. So have you seen the documentary, and what did you make of that and what he thinks?
Yep. I watched it in Auckland. We all went there as a gym and watched the New Zealand premiere, and I was so surprised by it. Before this, my favorite MMA documentary was Notorious by Conor McGregor, but this is just way more. He's way more vulnerable and way more real and open, like the real Israel that I know, and especially at this current time that we're in for, I guess, males in society. I feel like it's so needed, and a lot of people can get inspired by it to go forward and move out of like a dark place and motivate themselves to do bigger things in the world. Yeah.
Shane, I was going to ask you, man, I know you mentioned on IG the last time you fought in Sydney, it was about 5 years ago, and you were kind of on hostile territory, and now you feel really welcomed going into this one. Take us into that a little bit, and also, I suppose, the feeling of where you and your team is compared to back 5 years ago when it was a little bit different.
Yeah, so funnily enough, I was kind of, I guess, in a way, the first CKB fighter to get in the UFC, because Dan was already in the UFC before we all started training together. So everything was new. It was all a new experience, but it was weird because I was fighting Alex Volkanovski, who was kind of a mate at the time. But it was the first time I've ever come out and been booed, and that was like a new experience. But it was fine at the time. But from there, five or so years ago to now, it feels like we are really Anzacs. Australia and New Zealand, there's no animosity between us. We're just a unified front taking on the rest of the world, and that's awesome.
And I know there's a few rumours floating around about potentially a card in Auckland next year. I just wonder, what would that mean to you to be able to potentially have the UFC come to Auckland and for you guys and for yourself to potentially be on a card on some home soil?
Yeah, I have to be on that card. We've had two UFC Auckland cards, and I've not fought on either of them. The last one, I was a spectator at both of them. But I have to be on that card. And I think it would be great for New Zealand MMA, for the scene, like the local scene, because to be honest, our local scenes, when I was coming up, when I was fighting, there were more fights, there were more promotions, and I just think maybe since COVID that it's sort of slowed down a bit. So I'm hoping that UFC Auckland card could help make some new promotions branch out or create some more fights for everybody to get some fights on their record and then fight overseas instead of beating up each other.
Shane, just over here. Yeah, right. So, Shane, obviously, this is a big fight, big opportunity here in Sydney. Are you looking at this fight as almost an opportunity to hit the reset button on your career a little bit?
Interesting. Yeah, because I've never, this is a new territory for me, being on a 3-fight losing stint. And it feels like do or die for me with this fight. I know I'm not yet in my physical prime, so for me it's just trying to get out there and prove to myself what all the years of hard work that I've put in. And I don't know if I answered that correctly, but.
And talking on that pressure, then does it change your preparation at all in camp heading into this fight? Whether it's additional physical work or whether it's working on the mental side of the game.
Yeah, mainly the second part that you said, working on the mental side of the game, because we as fighters, we're like almost living in that sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, from day to day. If you train 4 times in a day, you've only got like an hour and a half between each training session, and in that hour and a half, it's quite hard to get your nervous system back down. So my focus has been a lot on my mental preparation and trying to focus on the positive things about this, because it can be very scary, I guess, if you look at it from like 3-fight losing streak, fighting in Sydney, big crowd, 6 people. Like you can let that overwhelm you, or you can let it motivate you and build you up, and let that energy build you up so you rise to the occasion.
Shane, obviously a teammate and friend of yours, Israel Adesanya, getting the win back in April against Alex Pereira. Did that add any extra motivation to you for this camp, seeing him get that win in that last fight?
Yeah, 100%. It was like that whole finishing exchange was like an emotional roller coaster. It was a movie. Watching him get that calf kick and then back up against the fence, I was like, oh no, standing up on my feet. I had my son in my hands. I was like, no, and then whack. He just drops him with that right hand. I ended up like screaming, and my son started crying. But I'm sure he knew it was all good things. But it was more of a reminder that we are in a very special time. By we, I mean City Kickboxing. We are part of a very special time that's happening right now in this sport. And it's only a young sport. It's only 30 years old. But it motivates me to just be around the gym and to be more of a witness as well as a participant. Like, it's a weird thing. Sometimes, I'm in here doing this fight card. There's 6 of us. But also, once I finish my fight, I'm here to witness the greatness unfold from all my other teammates.
Just one more for me. Kevin Doucette makes his UFC debut this weekend, and he's a guy that we've known about here in Australia for a little while. But I just want to get your take and let the public know what Kevin's going to bring to the UFC.
Kevin is a legit threat in every way. I was surprised that he's only 30 because of his technical knowledge in so many different parts of the game. I was like, man, he needs to get in the UFC fast because he must be pushing 38 or something. Just because he's so skilled. He's so skilled. He's so strong athletically. And from when he's come to the gym like 3 or 4 years ago to now, his game has become so well rounded because everyone knows he's a judo black belt, basically a jiu-jitsu black belt, but his striking and how he mixes all those parts of the game has really evolved, and he's going to be a menace in the welterweight division.
Just
Sure, bro.
yeah, just hello.
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah.
How do you feel the main event's gonna play out on Saturday or Sunday?
I think it's going to be a lot like when Izzy fought Paulo Costa. Yeah, basically that. It's going to be a lot like Paulo Costa. Yeah, that's basically it.
Kia ora, Shane.
Kia ora.
Yeah. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Ravinda.
I hear you talking about, that mental strength and things, and I know that you have said in the past that you do summon and turn to your taha Māori in times like that. I know we've had kōrero about this before, but, how much of that and whakapapa lineage do you summon, on a week like this when you've got such a goal set in front of you?
Yeah, it's something that I don't feel. I feel like I'm in uncharted territory every time I fight. I feel like it's gonna sound like self-centered, but I'm like a pioneer in a lot of ways. So for Māori athletes or something, I don't know. But I feel like I try not to overthink it, and I almost create my own traditions. Like I still do try uphold to our traditions of like karakia and things that are sacred in that way, but I also feel like it's a bit uncharted territory because I've got no one to base what I should do off other than guys like Israel, and he's from an indigenous culture in Nigeria, so I feel like I'm just making a bit of a mixing pot and making my own mold. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask about pukana. I know that you perform pukana on stage, particularly at face-offs, and Kai does too. So is there any sort of training in that aspect of who has the better pukana?
No, I've done a little bit with someone because I started doing. He's like, nah, bro, you got to show your teeth more. And I was like, yeah, that's so true. So I've done a little bit, but not a serious pukana training. But maybe we'll do a pukana off one day.
Ka pai, thank you.
Thank you.
Shane over here.
Right.
You talked earlier, and it's kind of a theme about this special time in city kickboxing history right now, where you've got just so many high level people, not only in the UFC or making their debut or fighting at high level here in Australia or in New Zealand. Does this feel kind of like the city kickboxing show a little bit? You've got so many teammates on the card. What is going on right now at city kickboxing?
Honestly, when we fight on cards, it normally, especially with Israel as the headliner, it does feel like the city kickboxing show. Feels like we've got a big target on our back for the haters, and then from everyone that's like a supporter, they just want to come and like hang out with us. But this is the biggest, six fighters from the same gym out of a 12-fight card. I think that's like a record, or it's unprecedented. But what is happening at city kickboxing? I mean, I've said it, if you watch some of my older interviews before I got into the UFC, and Tyson said it, other people that have moved to the gym, they've said it, that we're a family. We have a family environment, so much so that, like, if you've got an uncle who you love, but he's super invasive in your life to the point where you're like, fuck off, uncle. Those are my coaches. Like, not fuck off, but like they love you so much that they want to be involved and want to make sure that everything's going okay. It's not like Huge and Mike in particular. They do so much for me outside of just my training. And I think what we're getting is a reflection of that, where everyone feels, I don't know, I guess safe and comfortable to really try and push for this thing, and we're all we wake up and we enjoy going to see each other, because like sometimes training can be hard, but it's made a lot easier when you got guys like my brother John Vake over there who are helping you and supporting you and making you feel good about yourself when you feel down, or you can do the same to them and not feel like you're being a jack off. Or yeah, it's a family environment, and we love what we do.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Kia ora, kia ora.
Oh, now not this guy.
Oh, hey, man. It's not
Next
like
question, please.
Oh. Hey, no, for real though, serious question. Okay, do you feel that like in terms of Aotearoa in New Zealand that it's making progress, with everybody there with MMA? Do you feel that there's some type of progress in being accepted more than it was when you first started?
What do you mean? Say again.
You know what I mean? Like
you mean like blood sport type stuff?
Yeah, how like we're still kind of in the dark ages when it comes to
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I don't even I got blinders on with that stuff, bro. Yeah, I don't understand that. But I can see it, say, when it comes to, say, like trying to find sponsors and stuff. Like over here in Australia, I know from my friends that have moved over from Australia, they find it easier to get sponsors because people don't. There are some people in New Zealand that are like, what is this? Like, this is barbaric. But I think a lot of that is that tall poppy stuff that we always talk about. And yeah, I mean, I hope there's going to be progress, but I just have blinders on to that stuff because I've got my corner, I've got my sponsors. I know what we're doing is great, and I try to be a good representative for martial arts and promote people getting into martial arts. And I actually think after this weekend, there will be a massive change in regards to that.
And in terms of the Sydney crowd, a lot of Warriors fans coming over here for Saturday. Can we just get a straight up up the
Up the
wires?
wires.
There we go. Thank you. With a worldwide audience there.
Yes, that's our year.
Shane again, just over here. You mentioned just before about John Varkey with Kevin Jusey signing to the UFC. He is vacating his Hex titles. Jusey has mentioned he would like to see Varkey fight for one of those Hex titles. What would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, John is premier. He's an elite fighter. He's an example of an elite fighter that just needs the opportunity. So he's at a point in his career where people don't want to fight him because he's got a great record and he's on the cusp of getting into the UFC. But they want to, people want to fight. When John and I were coming up in this game, the best fought the best. Now you get kids that are like, they want to be 5-0 and fight a guy on his debut. So, like, John deserves to take that welterweight title and probably move up and get the middleweight title. Who knows?
Thank you.
Yeah, up the wires. Thanks, everyone.